Yo, what's up, guys? We're back for another breakdown and predictions video. This week we got UFC Vegas 103. Pretty decent card, honestly, I think. I know a lot of people are trashing the card just because I feel the way that the UFC placed the bout order was kind of weird with who they put in the co-main event and everything like that. It made the card look worse than it is because I do think there's some fun matchups. And I just want to say off the bat, my bad for this video coming on a little bit later. I actually had it done and I don't know what was going on. I couldn't get it to upload to YouTube, and I was trying to figure out if I could, somehow get it to upload before doing another video, but unfortunately I couldn't do it, so had to record the video again, and that's why it came out a little later. But gonna try to put out the UFC 313 video even earlier, and try to keep putting out these predictions videos a little earlier in the week. But hit that like button right now if you're watching. And put a comment down below and let me know what's your most confident pick on this card. Who do you think is going to win, and who would you bet on? But let's move into this first fight of the night here between Charles Johnson and Ramazan Temirov, because I think it's an interesting one. Charles Johnson, he is kind of the guy that's going to say yes when no one else will. He's been the cleanup man for the UFC. Whenever there's a fighter in the flyweight division that people don't want to fight or they need someone to jump in on short notice, they call Charles Johnson, and he probably deserves a bigger name coming in here on a 4-fight win streak, but he doesn't say no, and that's why he's facing an 18-2 caucus fighter on a 10-fight winning streak in Ramazan Temirov. And Temirov only has one UFC fight, but he got the job done in style. He knocked out CJ Vergara in the first round, and 5 first-round finishes in a row for Temirov, and he's a very powerful guy for the weight. Big step up, though, so we're going to see if he's able to beat a skilled and motivated fighter like Charles Johnson. But Temirov, he's still unproven, and this fight is going to tell us a lot if you ask me. Obviously, Temirov is on a tear. He looked amazing in his last fight and some of his more recent fights, but he hasn't fought the best opponents. He looks explosive on the feet. Clearly, he's dangerous, but it's hard to really gauge for me how good he is. He throws a lot of really wild looping punches. I feel he lunges in and leaves openings, but the danger factor that he has saves him. And he's good at seeing shots and coming and either rolling with them and just getting out of the way and then returning. So he will kind of touch and go with you in the pocket fairly decently, but I feel like like I said, he does leave some openings. He will mix in some spins too, like spinning kicks. He has fast kicks in general. And when he hurts you, he will go for the finish. But I don't really see him as like a super slick striker. It's more like power and speed. And he has a really nice sprawl. It seems like he has good reactions to takedowns. And the times I've seen guys shoot in on him, they've really gotten nowhere with it. But one thing I haven't really seen is him have to deal with upper body takedowns much. And Johnson being a little taller, I think maybe that could be a path to victory for Johnson. And maybe some knees for Charles Johnson too, try to zap Temirov in the clinch. So Temirov just needs to stay moving, try to stay out of any dirty boxing, grappling exchanges, I feel like. And the conditioning for him is going to be tested here as well, because he hasn't been out of the first round in 3 years. And if he becomes the first fighter to stop Charles Johnson and does it early, congrats to him. But most likely this is going to be a longer fight. I don't think that Temirov really has the ability to get takedowns, so it's a big challenge for him here. And Charles Johnson, super experienced technical fighter, long, lanky on the feet, super slick punch kick combinations. He'll throw elbows, he'll throw knees, and he attacks all parts of the body. He's really high volume, good power, really effective with his pressure, and he's good at keeping fighters at the edge of his shots. He heads off the cage and then kind of can counter off the back foot with the pressure and feints. His conditioning is elite. He has plus goes across the board. And like I said, I think he needs to use his clinch work here. Maybe try to mix in some takedowns. And obviously extend the fight. Use his experience. And if Temirov gets Johnson early, he gets him. But I just think Johnson has too much skill and experience on the feet to win. Temirov is dangerous, but way smaller. He's going to have to close that gap. And Johnson has dealt with all kinds of strikers, all kinds of heavy hitters. I don't see Temirov bringing a wrestling game capable of mixing it up versus Johnson. And if anything, Johnson can mix it up on Temirov. So give me Johnson here, and I think he's going to actually get that elusive submission that he's been looking for in the UFC. And I'll predict that he wins via submission in round 2. So Charles Johnson is going to be the prediction. And in fight number 2 of the night, we got Montana De La Rosa taking on Luana Carolina. Two fighters kind of right outside the top 15 who've seen it all, who've fought a lot of girls in the rankings. More Montana De La Rosa in terms of fighting ranked fighters, but they've both been in the UFC for years now, her and Luana Carolina. And whenever either fighter has kind of had that chance of cracking in the top 15, they failed so far. So that's why they're fighting each other. It's kind of going to see which prospect they're going to still try to push, but they both have some momentum here. Montana finally got back into the win column. She had not won a fight since 2020-21 before she won last year and had 3 losses in a row. But she was able to beat Andrea Lee, which she's also on this card, Andrea Lee. And Luana Carolina is on a 3-fight winning streak. So she's been doing really well recently, even though she hasn't been facing the same level of opposition in comparison to Montana. And she missed weight once, so that's why she's probably getting this other test before she gets a top 15 opponent. But when I'm watching these two girls, how they fight, Montana, she does have that wrestling background, and if she can get on top of Carolina, I feel like she could hold her down, but she just doesn't do a good job of blending her wrestling with the striking, and Luana is always moving. Every fight that she's in, especially recently, the majority of the time, actually, I mean, not every fight, but the fighter she's going against is trying to take her down. So she's used to girls looking to clinch her and drag her to the mat. She's long. She's gotten pretty good at defending takedowns. So I just feel like Montana is going to be reduced to striking here because she just doesn't set her takedowns up the greatest. If she does try to wrestle, I feel like Carolina can kind of shut that down and do some work in the clinch. We've seen Mayra Bueno Silva do a lot of good work in the clinch against Montana. And at range, I mean, Montana has improved with her straight punches, and it seems like she's gotten a little bit more confident, sharper. Her variety in the striking is even a little better. She was throwing some elbows her last fight, but to me, she's still kind of basic, and her footwork, she's a little bit slow and choppy. I think she is going to struggle to close that distance on Luana, who, even though she might not have like a crazy reach advantage, she's throwing kicks and she's kind of like throwing punches, leaning backwards, and just she accentuates her reach in a weird way while making herself kind of elusive and awkward, hard to hit. And it's proven to be a hard style to deal with because she also has high volume and good cardio, so she's going to be there sticking and moving for 3 rounds. Fighters get kind of, what's the word I'm trying to use? They'll get frustrated, and then that's where Luana can kind of capitalize and pitter-patter her way to get decision wins. And kind of what I see happening here. I mean, maybe Montana can surprise me and come in here and close that gap better and show that she has the superior boxing, which I think she does, or mix in the takedowns, but I just think she's going to struggle to close that distance. She's going to be getting out-volumed, and she's going to probably fail on some takedowns that doesn't look good in the judges' eyes, and Luana's going to take this in a competitive decision. So Luana Carolina will be my prediction. And for this next fight, man, we got a fight that should be a banger between Lucas Almeida and Danny Silva. Two guys that like to meet in the middle and throw down, so I don't see anyone backing off here. I think there's going to be a finish. I think this is going to be a firefight. And both these guys, they don't like facing wrestlers, grapplers, but Danny Silva, if you remember his last fight, he did get a few takedowns. So I think if anyone mixes it up, it's going to be Danny Silva, but ultimately I honestly think both these guys are going to meet in the middle and throw down, and someone's going to get knocked out. You look at Lucas Almeida, he's really good off the front foot with that Muay Thai pressure. He throws that nasty left hook, nice 3-2s, and he's just looking to walk you down and put that heat on you. But if you actually sit in the pocket and know how to exchange with him, it looks like he gets real stiff. He'll stand tall, and he leaves his chin up in the air, and we saw Andre Fili take advantage of that and knock him out. Almeida, he does good when he can walk guys down and kind of just bully them and they don't have much off the back foot. Danny Silva, I don't see him cowering down. I think he's going to be meeting him in the middle. And Danny Silva has really good boxing. He's a great brawler. You'll see him go to the body to open up headshots. And I just feel like he has the sharper hands on the inside, which is going to pay a lot of dividends for him. I think he's going to be able to land heavy. And I see him as the younger guy, the more durable guy, probably a little bit hungrier guy. And I just think Danny Silva is going to be able to go in there. And these guys are going to get in exchanges in the pocket. I think Danny Silva is going to land cleaner, land harder, eventually get that knockout. And even if, let's say, Lucas Almeida is having a lot of success with the striking, I think Silva can mix it up and get some takedowns and use that to either open up a striking later in the fight where he gets a finish on the feet near the end of the fight, or maybe even win a decision. But I think that Silva's not going to have those issues on the feet. I think he's going to be able to close the distance and have the better boxing on the inside, land the better shots in the pocket, and I think he's going to knock out Almeida. So give me Danny Silva here to be victorious in the UFC. And we have another female fight in this next one between Andrea Lee and JJ Aldridge, two longtime MMA veterans. I mean, you could argue both these girls are kind of pioneers for female MMA. Andrea Lee, her first fight was in 2011. JJ Aldridge all the way back in 2010. 14th UFC fight for Andrea Lee, 16th UFC fight for Aldridge. But both have to win here, especially Andrea Lee. Lee, I believe, is tied currently for the most losses in a row for a female in UFC history with 5. So she would set a pretty dubious record if she loses here. It makes it 6 losses in a row. And JJ Aldridge, she lost her last fight to Veronica Hardy, and she's lost 3 of her last 5. But she was on a 2-fight win streak before the loss to Hardy. So if you want to argue anyone has the more momentum, it's definitely Aldridge. But the pressure is on for both. Man, to me, this fight just comes down to, I feel like JJ Aldridge is still in the game more. She has a good training camp behind her. She is still training with good fighters and preparing right. I feel like Andrea Lee, I'm just not... I don't see that as much. I don't know where she's training, who she's training with, what type of work she's getting in. Her corner with Tony Kelly every time, it's like... I don't like the advice there. I don't like what they got going on, in terms of the coaching stuff there. And I feel like Andrea Lee, she's been gassing out in these fights lately, man. She comes out there, she's strong for the first half, and then she looks like she's stuck in the mud in the second half of these fights. She's just completely gassed, and I think in this fight she's going to have to wrestle to win. I mean, it's not like she's at a big disadvantage on the feet, but I just think JJ with the basics can kind of just piece her up. We just saw Montana De La Rosa outstrike Andrea Lee on the feet with 1-2s with the jab. And JJ Aldridge just abused Montana with the stand-up. So you'd think that if Andrea Lee is struggling with Montana on the feet with the same weapons that JJ is good with, it's going to be kind of a levels fight in the stand-up after Andrea Lee's kind of explosive athleticism, quickness slows down with her cardio. So Andrea Lee, I mean, her wrestling is good. If she would go out there and be able to wrestle JJ up and control it for 3 rounds, or at least mix it up where it could make it a closer fight, even if she's losing most of the striking, then I would give her more of a chance. And when you're looking at it from a betting perspective, I mean, I guess you could say it's a dog or pass, but it's like, man, no one should be betting on this fight. And I think JJ is going to win. I feel like JJ will probably win fairly easily, 29-28, maybe even 30-27, just pumping the jab out there, using the basics on the feet, and being better conditioned and probably just a little bit more prepared with better game planning. And in this next one, we got the oldest 135-pound fighter on the roster, Douglas Silva de Andrade, taking on John Castaneda. And de Andrade, he's been in the UFC for 11 years, and he's only lost to guys in the top 15. He's also never lost 2 fights in a row, so coming in here with a loss, he's looking to continue that trend. And Castaneda, he's been in the UFC for a little bit too now. He signed in 2020, 4-3 overall, so he hasn't been super active, but had some good fights and bad fights. And De Andrade's, an exploder. He likes to slow fights down, use a lot of movement, and then explode in or counter with one or two big shots. But he's pretty slick, evasive, and he can crack. So he gives you some problems, and he's just built like a freaking bull. Like, and throw some spinning attacks. He can walk you down. He cuts the cage off and closes the distance fast. His durability is really good. He's a hard guy to stop. And it's not like he's going to offensively wrestle you, but he's a hard guy to take down and control. And his conditioning is good, even though if you make him fight at a higher pace, he will slow down. But he's good at kind of controlling the pace and using his conditioning in the right way. And Castaneda is a fighter who's very elusive and can fight off the front foot or back foot. Good at kind of using his head movement, quickness to slip and rip, kind of touch and go with you. Good job mixing the levels of his attacks. He'll go to the legs, the body, the head, and he will wrestle as well. And I think this fight's going to come down to Andrade's going to land counters on Castaneda. Castaneda's going to be feigning, slipping, ripping, using his speed, and I think he's going to be the guy going forward here. If anyone mixes it up and goes for takedowns, I think it's going to be Castaneda too. Castaneda's younger. I think he has a little bit better conditioning. His distance control should be a little better. I feel like this fight likely goes to decision. And I'm going to say John Castaneda is the victor. And closing out the prelims, we got the featherweights with Chepe Mariscal taking on Ricardo Ramos. And both these fighters are solid, but this is a build-up fight for Chepe, if you ask me. Ramos is good, and he's coming off a close split decision win over Josh Culibao, but style-wise, I see this as a hard matchup for Ramos. Chepe has obviously been streaking. He's unbeaten in the UFC. So even though Ramos won in an upset his last fight, Chepe has the momentum. And looking at how these two match up, Chepe is the more mobile fighter to me. Ramos may be more athletic, but he stands tall and he's a little bit stiff sometimes closing the distance. Chepe has good lateral movements. He throws nice counter hooks over the top, which I see landing. I think he can counter the kicks of Ramos by staying out of range and then closing the gap when he sees Ramos going to throw the kicks. And I think that he can kind of avoid the majority of the straight punches and offense from Ramos on the feet. I think he can land low kicks as well, which we saw played a big factor for Josh Culibao versus Ramos. She almost got him out of there with leg kicks, but Ramos was able to dig deep and get the win still. But Chepe, he's shown improvements in the grappling. He's good at using his judo to throw guys around, and he took out a credentialed grappler his last fight. I feel like he's going to be very difficult to backpack and control for Ramos, and I think that's Ramos' path to victory. And if he gets on top, I think he's going to do more damage, be the guy that's more likely to finish. I think Ramos is going to have to catch him in something slick on the ground or somehow land a wild spinning elbow like he did on Amen or a crazy kick and hope for a knockout. But I just think that's not going to happen. I expect Chepe to be able to defend the takedowns for the most part, scramble back up if he is taken down, do the damage on the feet, and ultimately I think he's going to get the stoppage here. So I'm going to say late second round finish for Chepe Mariscal. He keeps the momentum going and he finishes Ricardo Ramos. And this next fight I'm excited for because I like both guys as prospects, Danny Barlow and Sam Patterson, tall, long guys that pose dangerous threats, but man, I could see this being a really shitty fight. I could even see it being a super boring decision, or I could see it where nothing is really happening and then all of a sudden a finish happens. So kind of how I see this fight, because it's two guys that are long strikers and they like to counter it on the feet. Patterson obviously has a really good grappling threat, but I just don't see how he's going to get this fight to the ground. I mean, Danny Barlow seems like his athleticism is on point. He has a good sprawl. His reaction time is good. Patterson, I don't think is going to back him up to clinch up with him and take him down with the body lock. I just don't see that happening. You look at the majority of the times that Patterson actually does get submissions in the UFC or in Contender Series or even against higher level regional guys, a lot of the time they clinch him or shoot in on him, and then he can either get to that front headlock position where he's very effective at using that to get to the back, or he could reverse the clinch and get a takedown himself and then go to work from the top position from there. It's not a lot of the time where he's closing the distance and getting the takedowns, in that way. So Barlow isn't going to overextend and give these openings for him to clinch him. I don't think he's going to clinch up with Sam and close that gap for Patterson. And he should be the much better striker. I mean, I think Barlow is a lot. Both guys have decent jabs and they try to keep it long. But I think Barlow just throws with a lot more mean intentions. He's a little bit faster, a little bit sharper, and way more powerful and durable. I don't like Patterson's reactions to getting hit and just some of his defense, some of his tendencies. But I could just see this fight where both guys are just on the outside, jabbing, being super low volume. No one is really committing where someone could let go of something big and it's just nothing going on. But ultimately, I have to say Danny Barlow at some point, I just think is going to be able to either explode and connect on Patterson or get Patterson to overextend and land on him and get him out of there. I just think Danny Barlow is the more athletic guy and just the better overall fighter. So I got to go with Barlow. But like I said, I could see this being a lackluster fight until we get a finish, or if neither guy commits for 15 minutes, it'll be probably the worst fight on the card. But Danny Barlow for me is the prediction. And you got to give him some slack for his last fight. He broke his arm. So even though maybe he wasn't pulling the trigger as much as I liked in that one, maybe we'll see a little more aggressive Barlow here. But either way, Barlow by knockout is my prediction. And in this next fight, we got William Gomes taking on Haider Emil. And this is a fight where I think they're trying to get William Gomes to actually have to get in a fight, man. Like, it's the UFC, and William Gomes is really good at just running away and nullifying guys and just making fights extremely boring, point fight decisions. And the UFC gave him Joe Anderson Brito in his last fight. He was able to do the same thing to Brito and kind of just outpoint him. So now they're saying, hey, can you make Haider Emil boring too? Because this guy is almost impossible for him to have a boring fight. So they're saying, Haider Emil, go out there and make this guy fight. And but both these guys are undefeated in the UFC. Haider Emil comes in there brawling style, trying to take your head off. We saw him get the knockout win really early versus Ji Young Long. And William Gomes, he's getting these decision wins and racking them up. So something's got to give here, and I think it's a really interesting matchup. Gomes, I think he's going to have to wrestle here because if you look at his striking, I mean, his stand-up is good. I think he can keep the distance for portions of the fight and probably be sniping with the lead hand offense and the occasional straights. But Haider Emil does have very good footwork cutting the cage off and underrated dirty boxing. He kind of smothers his work a lot, which I don't like to see in the boxing, but it's because he likes to clinch and do these short uppercuts, mix in elbows, and he just weaponizes his pace and his pressure. I feel like he's somewhat of a similar version of like a Chepe, but yeah, and then in terms of the wrestling and the grappling, Emil can be taken down. He does give his back, but he's very strong and hard to control. His takedown defense is serviceable enough. Like, he will defend a lot of takedowns as well, even though he does get taken down at times. And I'm going to lead with Emil here by knockout. I just feel like that's where my head's at right now. It's the smaller cage. A lot of Gomes' wins have been in France, where he's getting the crowd on his side and maybe the judges are a little bit more on his side in terms of wanting him to win with that style. In the Apex, I could see him losing a decision or Emil getting the knockout here. And I just think Haider Emil is going to walk him down, force that brawl, be the bull, and going to beat the Matador in this one. I think he's going to be able to be the stronger guy, so he'll be able to defend the takedowns, maybe even reverse the takedowns and get on top. And I think maybe we'll see Gomes starting out good, but as the fight goes on, we'll see the tide turn and Mill start to take over, and I think Mill can get that late finish or decision win here, and I'm going to go with the slight underdog, Hyder Mill. And in this next one, Austin Lane taking on Mario Pinto in the heavyweight division, and UFC debut for Mario Pinto coming off the Contender Series. He is undefeated, he's young, he's looking good, 26 years old as a heavyweight, so definitely has a lot of room to grow, and we'll see if he's going to have to take some lumps early or he's just that much of a phenom. But Austin Lane, 37, and the guy's been around, in this UFC Dana White Contender Series level competition for years now, and he's definitely gotten way better. You have to give him credit. He's not the greatest world beater in the world, but the guy has won 4 of the last 5 rounds he's had in the UFC pretty dominantly. And even though he got knocked out versus Gennady Diniz, he won the first round with his wrestling, and then he was able to win all 3 rounds in his last fight to get his first UFC win over Robelis de Spain. And let's see if he can beat another prospect here with Mario Pinto. But Pinto's already fought Austin Lane, maybe not the exact same style, because he fought Kazim Arias, who's very short and compact, but a very good wrestler, and he was able to keep that fight standing for the most part. And then he fought a 6'10", 6'9", 6'10" ADCC champion or high-level ADCC jiu-jitsu guy, and there were some scrambles on the ground there where his opponent was pulling guard and just being really wild, but eventually Pinto was able to navigate that too and not get submitted or get sucked into it being controlled on the ground or anything like that. And in the stand-up, Pinto is very, I don't want to say nonchalant, but he doesn't throw a lot of volume all the time. It's just a lot of just jabbing and kind of keeping the distance, and then when he goes, and he'll explode, and he can get these knockout wins, look dangerous. Nice left hook knockout in his last fight, which if you look at Austin Lane's last 2 knockout losses, both left hooks. So Pinto left hook knockout his last fight. Austin Lane been knocked out with the left hook twice recently. I think you see the play there with the UFC wanting Pinto to maybe make that 3. But Lane, he's very tall, a former football player, so he's athletic. He moves well for his size, and he's looking to keep you on the outside, kind of do nothing, which with Robelis de Spain, we saw a ton of just staring in the mirror and nothing going on at distance. But I think Pinto, if he just ups the aggression even a little bit on the feet, he should be able to defend the takedowns or at least get back up. I don't see Lane having that success he did against the pure kickboxer like Diniz, just holding down Pinto. I've seen Pinto deal with this style in the past. And on the feet, I just don't trust Lane's durability. I think he's maybe not a horrendous striker, but his defense isn't good and his chin is bad. So at heavyweight division, you can't trust that whatsoever. And even though Pinto's kind of a low-volume guy that I think could end up having quite a few UFC decisions, I think he's going to get a finish here. First, second round. I just think he'll be able to shut down Lane's main game, which is the wrestling. Even though I think Austin Lane could give issues to other heavyweights, I think this is going to be a tough one for him. So Mario Pinto, I think, wins this one inside the distance. And this next fight, man, we got another barn burner. Nasrat Haqparast taking on Esteban Ribovics. And, man, Esteban Ribovic's last fight, you could argue, was a Fight of the Year contender for 2020-24. If not Fight of the Year with him versus Daniel Zellhuber. He ended up getting the decision win in that one. And every one of his fights have looked and been really fun to watch. Even his debut that he lost, he made it entertaining by getting back up to his feet after being taken down quite a few times, hurting Loic Zabov multiple moments. He had the sick knockout over McKinney, and then just that badass fight with Zellhuber. So he is showing off that UFC highlight reel and looking to add more to it. This time against Nasrat Haqparast, who is a longtime UFC vet now at this point, someone that's been in the UFC since 2016, and he is kind of a middle-of-the-road guy, I would say. He's been able to pick up some nice victories, but most of the time when they've given him a chance to move up in the division, he's not been able to get the job done. So this is just another opportunity for him to show that he's more than just a low-level gatekeeper or mid-level gatekeeper. He's someone that could become a threat for that top 15, top 10. And if he can beat Esteban Ribovics, I think he will prove that and earn that opportunity with the win streak that he's on as well. I believe he's won 3 fights in a row. So, pivotal fight for both fighters here. We'll see if Nasrat's experience can finally get him over that hump. But I'm leaning towards Ribovics here. I actually think both these guys are pretty similar style-wise. Predominantly, they like to box. Nasrat, he has a little bit more of a wrestling threat, but I don't see him being able to take down and control Ribovics here. He could take him down. I mean, I think people are forgetting a little bit just because of the incredible highlights that Ribovics has been giving us recently, that his first fight when he fought Loikrat Zabov, he got taken down quite a few times. And then even in his subsequent fight versus Kamwela Kirk, he got taken down a lot in that fight as well. But I do think he's leveled up in that aspect. And I don't think Nasrat is going to bring a volume takedown game. So Esteban just has to shut down the first couple. And I think he'll get Nasrat to stand up with him. And I think he's going to be able to do that. So how these guys match up on the feet is how I think the winner of the fight is going to be happening. And they both like to box, like I said. Nasrat's southpaw, and he's a little bit more of the guy that likes to pick his shots and move around, stay on the outside. He will pressure and get in the pocket too, but he's more of a pot shotter at range. Whereas Esteban Ribovics is 1 and 2. Close that distance, throw super hard, heavy combinations, body head combinations, finishing combinations with kicks, and just going to war with you, brawling it out with you, nasty counter hooks, and super tight defense, just very impressive pressure, elite durability, and his cardio is just off the charts. So the guy's a big problem to deal with on the feet. I mean, we saw Zoe Hubert hit him with an elbow from hell, and he got dropped, got right back up like nothing happened, is right back in Zoe Hubert's face, beating him down. So Nasrat, I just don't think he has the power to keep Esteban off of him, and I think Esteban is going to throw the longer, better combinations with the boxing. I think he's going to be the pressure fighter, and I just see him dominating this fight. So Ribovics for me is going to be the prediction. I don't know if I see a late finish or a decision. I'm kind of iffy on that, but my prediction will be Ribovics via decision. And in the co-main event of the century, we got Cody Brundage versus Julian Marquez. 2 massive flakes. I mean, one guy that coming in here after yet another fight where he got injured and stayed down and the fight ended up being called. This time, he didn't get the win from it, but it was a no contest versus Abdul Razak. And Julian Marquez, 3 losses in a row for him coming in here. He hasn't won since 2021 when he knocked out Sam Alvey, I believe. So, been a long time, and he hasn't knocked out someone that is UFC level in years. But Cody Brundage, very maligned by a lot of fans. I mean, no one likes this guy, it seems like, because of the stunts that he's pulled in the past, and just the guy's a total flake in there. I mean, apparently he's very good in the gym, but you see him in fights, he's panicked, he's trying to get out of there as soon as possible, swinging wild on the feet, jumping every guillotine he can, and if he doesn't get the job done in the first round, it seems like he breaks, he's totally fatigued, and the fight's over. His opponent can go out there and finish him. So I don't see that really changing. I think that with Julian Marquez here, Marquez likes to pressure and kind of feint that lazy jab and then slip and rip on you with his offense and land some big shots and try to knock you out as well. So since he's been getting a little bit slower, his durability isn't as good. He hasn't been slipping as many shots. He's been taking punches. And in the past where he would eat a shot to give a shot, he's been getting hurt or knocked out. And that high guard, he lets shots come around. He lets shots come up the middle. He's not necessarily the most defensively sound guy. I feel like Brunage is the way better fighter. It's just, is he going to be able to get the knockout early, or is he going to break because of the pressure of Marquez and allow Marquez to finish him? So I think that betting the under is probably a pretty smart idea for this fight. I think it's likely not going to go 7.5 minutes. I'm going to pick Brunage by knockout in the first round. But, yeah, I don't think you should be confident on either fighter here, but I do think it's going to go under, and my prediction will be Cody Brunage. And finally, we got the main event. We got Manel Kape taking on Asu Almabayev. It's going to be the first UFC main event for both guys, and I'm kind of surprised they gave a main event fight to Manel Kape. I know that he had an amazing fight, his last fight, but especially with this matchup against a wrestler, we could maybe see another really lackluster fight, potentially. I feel like Manel Kape's fights are very much how good they are predicated on his opponents, because he's not going to change his style, and he's shown that he's going to stay within himself and do what he wants to do, even if it's to his detriment and nothing happens throughout the whole fight. So you look at Manel Kape, the guy is incredible boxing. I think when people talk about who has the best boxing in the UFC, he gets left out, and I'm not really sure why, but his boxing is elite. He's super good at slipping and ripping in the pocket, and his speed is just phenomenal. So if someone's trying to close the distance on him and get in a boxing range, or someone's in the pocket with him, he's the best in the division in those areas. His hands are too fast. He's too powerful. He's mixing it up. He's going body. He's going head. And his speed is just blistering. So you can't be in boxing range with the guy. And it's hard to deal with him, because even at range, he's not the best kicker. Pretty deliberate kicker. But he has some hard kicks, and he has the flying knees. And he's long and tall, so it's not like, for the division, so it's not like most guys can keep him at the end of their range. And then if you're a wrestler trying to take down Kape, he has super good takedown defense, and then off his back, his jiu-jitsu is pretty solid as well, even though we haven't seen too much of it. So he's a very difficult guy to beat, but the one area where he really struggles is, not necessarily even struggles, but just he doesn't do much and his opponents can get ahead, is guys that throw kicks at him. If you're just kicking at range and keeping the distance with the teeps and leg kicks, I mean, we saw Makhachev do that for almost the entirety of their fight. Sure, he was able to get a couple takedowns, but he kept the distance with the kicks, and he was landing, and Manel Kape wasn't really throwing anything back. So they had to score some sort of offense, and it was the Makhachev offense. But is Asu Almabayev going to be able to use kicks to keep the range and, maybe make Manel so desperate that then he can get takedowns? I don't think so. I mean, the guy's 5'3", he's a short, small guy. I feel like he does show points in fights where he'll close the distance in an ugly way and he's there to be countered. Sometimes he'll stay in the pocket too long. I don't think he's going to get takedowns here, so it's going to have to be a stand-up battle for him. And I just don't think he has the kicking and footwork to win a fight off the back foot. 5 rounds, I mean, maybe it gives him a little bit more of an advantage if Manel Kape starts to slow down a little bit, but I don't think it's going to be so drastic that Asu could come back and win the fight. I think that Manel Kape's actually going to be able to get a knockout here at some point, probably second, third, fourth, fifth round, Manel Kape goes out there and gets Asu Almabayev out of there with the knockout. So I do think that Kape is going to look good. This is a good style matchup for him, I believe. And maybe we'll see him getting the next title shot. So Manel Kape, winner in the main event for me. I think he's a pretty safe pick there. I think he's going to get the job done. So there you have it, guys. That's a full card breakdown and predictions video for UFC Vegas 103. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Hopefully you learned something on this video. Hit the like button. Put a comment down below. Go to patreon.com/MMAPredictionGuru to get some extra content and support the channel. And besides that, man, for my parlay of the week for this week, I'm going to give you a parlay of Esteban Ruivix, Jose Chepe Mariscal, and Danny Barlow. And for my most confident pick of the week, I'll say Jose Mariscal. So thanks for watching, guys. See you guys soon. I am going to be doing another live stream Friday. Come through, be in the chat. It would be awesome to get some more interaction. And yeah, man, besides that, stay locked in the channel and peace out.